Что-то там загорять. Пропал туда.
Going down now or what? Yeah. There it goes.
Что-то сильнее. На, бросай еще.
Санька, отойди, не видать.
Один разбил.
One?
One, yes.
One gets small. There you go, man.
Давай,
Еще да.
Все, блин, температура. Пока вот эту собаку.
Oh, sorry, dude.
Дай мне заживал.
Okay, what happened?
Ты все закинул в пустое место. Едят они перец. Считается перец? Нет.
Японцы. Китай это Беларусь.
Да, это Китай, понял?
О, молодцы.
После нее. Так посидишь, покушаешь и ничего. Это самое. Она пьется очень хорошо. Она прямо как лимонад. Такая, как это. Она хорошего качества просто. Это для аппетита. Ничего страшного.
Что ты там ешь? Мясо?
Да, и пюре.
зависит от того, где едят рис.
Тихо, тихо, медленно иди, медленно иди. Она ничего не слышит.
Они не спрашивают?
Макни в воду, и она будет лучше отделяться.
Bye, see you again. Want a minute before you go?
Американский отдел. Вот.
Ого, понятно.
Так. Так, еще один папа.
Не запылились.
Пап!
Сися и сися.
Паспорт! У меня есть теперь паспорт!
Сися и сися.
У меня есть теперь паспорт!
Какая там?
Пап!
Available for baseball and football. There's about 50,000 seats in the Rogers Center. There's an elevator heading to the CN Tower. Actually, 2 elevators. Visiting the CN Tower, half the fun is actually the elevator ride. It takes 58 seconds to get from the bottom to the top. CN Tower lost their record last year to that new building in Dubai. Part of the Burj. Okay, brace yourselves, everybody. We're going to be heading out. So, yeah, somebody was electrocuted on one of the buses once with an umbrella. And it was just a tour guide, so it didn't really matter. We need a portable roof is what we need. Hey, there's a ferry boat out in the water. See, the islands out there, people live on the islands, and they rely on a ferry service that runs. It's run by the city of Toronto. I used to live on the islands about 4 years ago, and mansions or anything. It's just ordinary people with little houses, big trees, and a beach. 89-year leases on the property. To get one of these properties, you have to go on a waiting list. But the city has already told the people at the bottom of the list. That used to be a big problem over there. People would be stranded and building shacks in the woods, living happily ever after. The islands were originally not islands. They were a peninsula, one piece of land connected to the shore. People who lived out there used to be able to, they could just walk along and started taking sand up the peninsula for construction in town. And they didn't realize they'd taken out too much sand. The oldest part of Toronto, when they first started building a town. That was 1797. This ignores the earlier history. You know, there's native people who lived here for thousands of years before anybody else, and then the French were here in 1615. But what we have here today came from the English settlement. We're just going to go. Let's say nobody. Okay. Hockey Hall of Fame is built in an old building. It was originally built to be the Bank of Montreal. And that's what all these skyscrapers are. Coming up on the left, there's a bunch of big buildings. Those are banks. Every major bank in Canada has their head office just up here. We call it the financial district. It's the part of Toronto you see in a picture of Toronto. The visitor's guide to Toronto. Come visit Toronto. It's usually a picture of the CN Tower with all these buildings up ahead of us in the background. There's so many condominiums being built, we're starting to run out of good places to build them. Building them, even traffic here too, there's rush hour traffic. They had a big sign on the building here that said, if you live here, you'd be home right now. And sure enough, they sold it right quick there. But here's the bridge, so remember, please stay seated. We're all seated. Yeah, we're clear, Charlene. We're all clear for the train tracks. Here in Toronto, everybody's a hockey fan. I usually assume everybody on the bus is a hockey fan too. I'm not sure if that's really the case, but we just assume you are. Anybody asks you if you like hockey? The answer is of course. Yes. There's people that want to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, but the doors are locked. People always miss out. They want to visit, the doors are locked, they assume it's closed. The thing is, those doors are always locked. Just on the other side of those doors is the championship trophy, the Stanley Cup. And they don't want people walking off with it anymore. Maybe they could make more money if they had a bigger stadium, more tickets to...
Они хотят в рестораны.
Since 1797, officially called the St. Lawrence Market since 1803.
1797 году открыто.
I'm not a big market guy, but people who are into markets really like it. According to Food and Wine magazine, that's one of the 20 greatest food markets in the world. Watch this tree here, everybody. People on my side of the bus especially. Tree branches for you. Some of you are taking pictures. One of the most photographed buildings for this kind of building. It was the head office of the Goodrum and Works whiskey distillery. If you hear of something called the Distillery District in Toronto, it's a place with artists, live music venues, and things like that. It's a really nice looking place. That was the office for that complex. So here it is on the left, the world's first flat iron building. Now this is normally our stop for that food market too, but the food market is closed on Monday, so nobody wants to go to the food market, do they? Okay, that's good. St. Lawrence Market closed on Monday. We're on Church Street. They said that they founded a town here. The native people called this Toronto. The French people called it Toronto, but the English changed in 1834. Eventually they changed the name back to the original Toronto. That's why you might hear of Fort York, you might hear of Yorkville, which is the village beside York, or the old town of York. They're talking about that time period. Here's a church on the right. This is the church that the Queen attended while she was here just a few weeks ago. You know, our government is a monarchy, a constitutional monarchy. And when the Queen comes to town, she is the head of state of Canada, and that's the church she attended. She's always, if she's ever here on a Sunday, it's always that church.
Ну это в 1849 году построен, вот тот замок.
Это замок?
Да.
Through those visitor guides to show all the things people are supposed to do. Most of the things you're supposed to do are tourist attractions that cost money. But they usually, these books mention St. Michael's, because it's supposed to be the most beautiful church in the city, at least from the inside. It's known for its windows, Tiffany glass. I'm a little upset here too, because the church that we just drove by tore down their parish house and sold the land to a developer, which is good for the church. They're going to make a lot of money. They're going to build a high-rise building right here. But the Catholic Church is upset because the Sunday morning sun isn't going to come through their windows anymore. And that's what they're famous for, is these beautiful windows. But then they're used to that, sure. St. Michael's Sunday Mass. This is the home of the St. Michael's Boys Choir. And we're about to see something totally different in a bit. You know, this is older buildings, history, as much history as we have left anywhere. This area had a lot of major fires, so the oldest buildings are gone. That church we drove by, the first one, they call that the first church of Toronto. It was actually the first church of Toronto. They've had 3 major fires that burned that church down every time. But where we're going to go in a minute is an area that's all shopping, people, restaurants, theaters. Toronto's main street. It's called Yonge Street. It's used by other people, sometimes big musicians, sometimes small musicians, sometimes very famous people, other times it's the local choir around the corner, comedians, whatever it is. So, yeah, it's not open yet. And Dundas Square, this place is a patio. Do you want to hop off here and go to the corner, or do you want to wait for the corner? Just turn on the corner. Now we are going to go around. I'll show you when you get off the bus. We got people hopping off here, okay?
Здесь остану.
Okay. You want to go on that roller coaster? You want to go on that roller coaster that looks like your hand?
Это тут проходит.
It's actually a big controversy in the city because the square took 4 years longer to build than it was supposed to. And it was billions of dollars of reflection. As famous as it is, I think the most famous part of downtown is this area in front of us. Like when I was a kid anyways, there was no such thing as Dundas Square. Somebody said downtown Toronto, we thought of Sam the Record Man, and the junk stores and the strange people, vinyl record stores, places to buy fake ID in case you need to be a Canadian for $10. And look behind us to the right was a building that partly collapsed. Right behind us to the right, look at that, that's a big thing on the news. It collapsed months ago and never stopped. And another place to get some fake ID. And all this stuff. And for those of you hopping off, this is stopped at the Delta Chelsea on Yonge Street. What's that? Okay, we're all clear upstairs, surely. It's got rain again. It keeps threatening to rain. I don't think it will right now. Street. Further up here, this similar to what we saw back there. Cheap stores, unusual stores, stores like Mr. Cheapy's, Discount Sushi, the truly Canadian dollar store. There's the yellow van beside it. That house over there used to belong to the first mayor of Toronto. It's a museum today called Mackenzie House. First mayor of Toronto, William Lyon Mackenzie. His house is a museum. I'm not sure how many visitors to the city actually go to see it. I guess not very often we get somebody on our bus that's looking to visit it, but I really enjoyed my visit there because it was in grade 4. We got to miss school for the day. It was a class trip in grade 4. There's a lot of history behind the place. And, you know, they should wait. We started the rebellion of 1837. Now, if you're from Canada, you may or may not have ever heard of the rebellion of 1837. The mayor made a critical error during the rebellion. Actually, before the rebellion, he told everybody about it. And so the rebels were arrested before the rebellion started. And that was the end of that. What makes it an important part of our history, and the reason we go there in grade 4 for a class trip, is the rebellion caused the... There's a lot more to it than that, but that's the gist of it. We go back to where you started, and at that point we'll see the whole thing. And if you want to stay on at that point, you can stay on the bus and just do the same thing over again. But most people just do the tour and that's the end of that. Some people stay on the bus and get on and off and visit things. Keep in mind our last tour of the day is at 3 o'clock. There's 2 buses before that that are doing their last tour. So by like 4 and 5 o'clock.
Раньше ну юбилей 10.
East-West tour 1:30. I know what I'm looking for. It's just up there. It's a very large art gallery. This street runs right down through the middle of all the banks. Every major bank in this country has an address, usually a headquarters, on this street. Before this was a road, this was a trail that animals would use to walk down to the lake. Eventually they turned it into a road for cars, but animals Well, most of the animals were gone by then, but the bears weren't afraid. They would still walk down the middle of this road going to the lake. So they used to call this Bear Street before it became Bay Street. Bear Street's a good name for a street. But they built the Toronto Stock Exchange here on Bear Street. And they didn't like the sound of it because I don't know if you ever heard the expression before, but a stock market that goes down is a bear market, and it sounded bad. So. Well, we have people chasing us down the street here. Yeah, I'm waving them up here, Charlene. Where they came from. There we go. Is a Toronto company before they became international, and they want to have a nice hotel. They have a very prestigious hotel around the corner, but somebody built a nicer hotel right beside them, so now they're doing the same thing. They're building an even nicer hotel. Residential tower beside it, part of the same project where people are paying $1.9 million to over $30 million for it on that corner. This gray building on the right-hand side, $2.5 million to over $7 million. I know compared to other parts of the world, that's no big deal. But here in Toronto, that's outrageous. Well, now it's an antique shop. Yeah, on the right-hand side, these used to be houses, you can tell at the top. Now they're all turned into stores, fashion. This isn't really my bag. I'm not a Yorkville kind of guy, but it's a nice place. It's different looking. And on the right, this is by a yellow brick building. It used to be the hospital. It's a home and garden store. Clothing in the windows. Notice this earlier today. 70% off. 70% off. I was in that, not that particular store. I was in a store in that same building, and I saw a pair of socks for $800. So 70% off doesn't necessarily mean it's a good deal. You can get deals here though. Not everything is outrageous. Restaurants, some of them are actually quite reasonable. And on the right-hand side, the only 5-star hotel in Toronto so far. On the right, we're building 3 more of them right now. This is the Hazelton. You've probably never heard of it because there's only one Hazelton hotel. It's a one-of-a-kind, not a chain. According to the local news, people pay as much as $7,000 a night to stay there. But of course, most people aren't so silly as to spend that much money. Most people spend between $300 and $1,200. Please with us for a second. Okay. We have a lot of famous people in Toronto just because they film Yankees. New York Yankees are staying here. It's a ball game at the Rogers Center. We saw Yorkville. I don't know what you thought of it. Some people describe it as quaint. Whatever that means. I think quaint means lampposts and hanging flower pots or something, I'm not sure. But they want to spiff it up and make it more prestigious. So out here on the outskirts of Yorkville, $20 million worth of granite, courtesy of the City of Toronto taxpayers. We're putting granite sidewalks along Bloor Street. And the museum here on the right-hand corner, here's the biggest museum in Canada. It's called the Royal Ontario Museum. It opened up in 1913, and then this happened more recently. Hey, there's our other tour. You see that red and white funny-looking vehicle coming up on the left of us? The green sign in the front window. That's the other tour. They're using that bus today. Now, this building on the left of us is called the Crystal. It was built to resemble a crystal. Designed by Daniel Deepskin, world-renowned architect. Same architect who got the contract to do the reconstruction of the World Trade Center. Anything that looks that modern is going to be criticized. People love it, people hate it. It just depends on who you're talking to. I was reading the paper, I was reading a movie review. They said the movie was so bad, it was almost as bad as that building. But then later in the same newspaper, there was an article about the building itself saying how it's such a modern inspiration all around. Nobody had ever lost 50 games in a row, and it turns out they didn't either. So that 50th game, they won it, and they're not on a winning streak, but at least they're back on track, so it's good. closer to the view. When I go to the shoe museum, usually what happens is it's husbands and wives on the bus, and the husbands get dragged into the beach. And eventually, they come back to the bus and say, there wasn't so bad after all. I went there only because I'm a tour guide and I have to visit everything. Otherwise, I've never been to a shoe museum. The most thing that really made me happy when I went to the shoe museum, I realized that 10,000 shoes is only 5,000 pairs. Sorry, those aren't the best example of Bay and Gable houses. Maybe there's not as many. There are some people moving. A lot of the places here are divided into rooms nowadays. Students rent rooms and walk to school from here. That is the end of the castle as far as they're concerned. They left it abandoned for years while it was vandalized. Homeless people lived inside of it. And the only reason they started it as a boys' college university. Now it's going into a whole bunch of different schools that make up one university. They didn't have a girls' school here for a long time until they built the one on the left, right there with pillars. If you look above the pillars, it says Department of Household Science. That was the school of cooking and cleaning for the girls. They don't do that anymore, of course. There's the girls' residence in the great big building. That's Ansley Hall, the first girls' residence in Canada. And it's still a very popular part of the university on the weekends. Emmanuel College on the left, right there, that's one of the colleges. On the right is where the lawyers come from. We're going to buy some buildings here. The faculty of law, the music schools in behind there. One of my favorite buildings. Oh, it's hard to see, so never mind. Here's another building inside the scenes to the right of these trees. You'll see little green rooftops. Trinity College. Right here you can see it. It's Trinity College. Neo-Gothic architecture. There's a relatively modern library at the university. The government buildings for this province, the Ontario government buildings, are up on the left. And we'll go around and see the front side of those buildings. If you look through the trees beside us to the right, it's got like a castle over there. That's the graduation ceremony. That's the old school that still stands at the university nowadays. There. These other buildings on the right here, right and up ahead. These are all medical buildings, medical students. And back to the government buildings again. If you look behind us to the left, the government pays $11 a year to the University of Toronto to be there. It's a 100-year lease. $11 a year for 100 years. Remember the government buildings were there? Used to be a mental institution called the University Hospital for the Insane. There was a college on the same spot. That's what started the university. On the right, we're going by a glass building. This is the government's electricity industry. We're going by hospitals. On the right, Princess Margaret Hospital. And on the right as well, Mount Sinai Hospital. Mount Sinai. On the left, we've driven past most of Toronto General Hospital. That's the biggest hospital in Canada now. He's setting his bag down now, put his coat on. He's green. Oh no, he's put his backpack. None of my business what he's up to, but that's the new City Hall. The old City Hall is on the left of us. This brownish sandstone building. Old City Hall was designed to be a City Hall and a courthouse all in one building, and now it's just a courthouse. It was built by Edward James Lennox. That's the architect who built the castle. Famous architect in this city. It became a big controversy of its time because it was supposed to be a 2-year project, but it took over 10 years. It was supposed to cost the city $300,000, ended up $2.5 million after all those years of being overdue. They actually sued the architect for that. And that was the courthouse at the time. They say they sued him right in his own building, but I sometimes wonder if that was true. The public was so upset about it, about the time and the money and everything, that they told people it was finished before it really was, had grand opening ceremonies for it before it was done. Secretly paid men to operate the clock by hand. The clock tower everywhere, so they had guys up there moving the clock by hand all day. City Hall. Here you can see from here, the buildings are very skinny. The windows face the sun, so the sun shines through and warms them up quick. Big, heavy concrete walls in the back to absorb the heat. And if you can't see it, we are going to be stopping here for a few minutes. We're going to be leaving here at 5 after the hour. Whatever time you have there. about 10 minutes or so. Use the clock tower on the old city hall behind us. I can't see the clock tower now, but if you're walking around, you'll be able to see the clock tower. 5 minutes after the hour.
I honestly think I'd be less stressed out if I had to take
They all look different. You look carefully in the uniform and whatnot. And then there's a church down here. It's called St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. The oldest congregation in Toronto still together is this church in the 1830s. The church itself was actually built in the 1870s. Isn't that nice? It's nice. And very typical of our old buildings too. An old building with all new buildings all around it. And I mentioned the symbol number 99 on the front, the red writing, Wayne Gretzky. Who here's never heard of Wayne Gretzky? Nobody wants to admit to never hearing of Wayne Gretzky? That's good. Around here, Wayne Gretzky is, he's a Canadian hockey player, and he's probably, if you had to pick the 10 most famous Canadians, he's probably like number 2 or something. I'm not sure who number 1 would be, but